we have been kind of astonished by the response to the Quiltalong and the desire for fabrics and everything, and we are cutting as fast as we can. But the thing is, you guys kind of faked us out. So we did a survey after the last Quiltalong asking whether you wanted fabric like kits or starter bundles or something for a Quiltalong. And 85% of you said you were going to use your stash.
Which is great.
Which is great. And so we designed something where you could use your stash or, you know, what solids, low, small scale prints, whatever. So we were really, and also a lot of you told us that you don't quilt in the summer as much because you're with your grandkids or you're traveling.
Or like us, you spend a lot of time in the garden.
Yeah, so we were thinking it would be a couple hundred people and that would be it. And
we were wrong, which is great. We've got lots of room in the cabins for you all.
Right. But it does explain why we, there's some sold out fabric, but we're cutting every day. And
every day.
So we'll, oh, good. Oh, yes, the shirts. We'll be explaining that. Yes.
What's camp without a camp t-shirt?
I know,
right?
I know. And then there will be an opportunity if you would like a shirt also to be able to have a shirt. Not mandatory in any way.
No, and we'll talk about that later.
Just added silliness because this whole thing isn't silly enough. So, but anyway, hi Kay, thank you for commenting. So at least we know the Kay's here. So we're going to get started. This is like a marathon.
It has been so busy because, first of all, as Week said, we expected a bunch of campers, but this was like a lot of extra busloads of campers showing up. So we're
camp shirts, yay!
Yeah, we're totally busy preparing for you, and then kind of unbeknownst to us, the release date of our fabric line kind of moved around a bit. So we've got, we've got a brand new fabric line to unbox and show you today. What you don't see is we just finished designing another fabric line.
Yeah.
We are busy.
Yeah.
So.
But I think that the one thing, and this has been hard because I think we decided to open up the Quiltalong a little bit, well, to open up, do the introduction part a couple weeks early, but then I think people were like so ready to go, they're already asking questions. It's like, hold on, let me just get your fabric out first.
So as a reminder, for those of you who are doing the Summer Camp Quiltalong, because some of you aren't, which is absolutely fine, but we'll be talking about it a little bit today. Those of you who are, the first installment and first supplementary video dropped this morning at 8 a.m. and the response was immediate, which is great. But you're going to have 2 weeks until the second installment is released. After that, the subsequent installments will be a week apart. But don't feel...
You got lots of time.
You got plenty of time.
Yeah,
you're getting used to the camp right now.
Yeah, exactly. So I love Nancy's comment. Do you have to share your cabin? No, you do not. And I like Lynn's comment that she's checking in from the I don't do mystery quilts cabin. Yeah. There's also people who I don't do modern quilts. There's a bunch of people in that cabin also. So what beer is on? You know, the thing that's so funny about this whole thing is that, you know, we were having this conversation with our daughter who is in her last summer at her beloved summer camp.
Before she goes off and becomes an engineer.
Yeah, and she was talking about the director of the summer camp has his PhD in something, some topic of kind of
social organization.
Yeah, and group management. And he was talking about his thesis is on, or PhD is on, dissertation that would be, how to keep people in a group and attract them so they want to stay. And I said, I'd like to read that.
And it has very much worked in that our daughter was a camper at that camp.
Yeah.
And like many campers, went on to become a counselor and wanted to stay and deferred her full-time job
Yeah.
so she could do it one more summer. But for you all, we're delighted that so many of you kind of came to the first Mystery Quiltalong
Exactly.
and stayed. And we find your enthusiasm contagious. This is as fun for us as for you, I hope.
But I think what we've tried to do also is listen to you, and when you have told us that you don't want to make an identical quilt that everybody else is making, and you want to be able to use your stash, and you want to have fun, and you want to have community, and you want to have support. So that's why this experience is so different, and I'm really oh, how much have I missed? Oh, we're still in the introduction.
We're just in the warm-up.
Yes, we're getting warm-ups.
And I will quickly comment on Laura asked where the mystery video is. People who have enrolled, who have purchased their Quiltalong, got a secret page they could go to see the videos and get the installments. If you haven't yet signed up, then there is on our YouTube channel, there is a kind of an explanation video that gives the general idea of what's going to happen. So there's that general intro video, and then the other videos, the one we are talking about is on a private, it's a private video for people who are already taking part in the Quiltalong.
But if you've signed up for it, Laura, and I can't remember whether you're in that
You don't
group,
remember all the hundreds of names?
Hundreds and hundreds of names. If you have signed up, it would be, the link to the lodge would be on your receipt.
On your welcome page.
It says signed up, no secret information. Yeah, look on your confirmation. It's probably in your spam folder.
Yeah.
So great to see everybody. So we're gonna get this sing along going here. She's got it good. Okay.
Great. So we're
already off the rails. It's been 6 minutes.
There's this big box sitting in front of you.
2 big boxes.
There's one on either side. And Weeks she's been weightlifting for many years. And this, I'm just looking on this right now to see where it is. But generally these boxes, this one is 48 pounds.
Yes.
It's a lot. We've been hauling a lot of fabric.
We've been hauling kind of three of these every couple of days. We've gone through just hundreds and hundreds of bolts of fabric. So anyway,
I have the box cutter.
So let me just back up quickly.
Back up.
This
has nothing to do with summer camp.
Yes. So we designed this originally to come out in January.
Well, let's tell them what this is.
Well, I'm getting there. This is our latest fabric line. We designed it to come out in January, and then it said June, July, and we knew that the Quiltalong was going to be January 1st, and so the timing was just a little bit off to be able to use it for the Quiltalong, because we couldn't get firm dates on exactly when we were going to have access to it and shops were going to have access to it. So this is kind of a bonus, a lagniappe, as they would say in New Orleans. This is a bonus thing to have a new fabric line, and so we're going to spend some time talking about Delight, this new line, and then we'll get into summer camp questions, of which there are many. So and also not every, there are a lot of people, and they're loud, and they're doing the Quiltalong, but there are tens of thousands of people who aren't doing the Quiltalong who might be interested in this also. So go ahead, Bill, and break into the first box.
So I actually have to make a quick comment. So many of you have Olfa rotary cutters that you love. Did you know that Olfa makes great box cutters too?
Bill, somebody's saying to check if our mute is on.
Oh, no, they're talking to that person.
Oh, okay. All right.
So we're good. So box cutter, Olfa box cutter, like a true fabric person.
Yes, we have no relationship with Olfa.
But you gotta love yellow tools that are easy to spot.
So this line is all about you. And when we designed it, we wanted to delight you, and that was the goal. So all of these prints were inspired by things that we thought might delight you.
All right. Okay. I'll hand them to you. And then,
Okay.
Okay. Oh, this is fun. We get started.
Yes.
And feel free to pull. We've got plastic wrap on these. So
Well, yeah, they come that way.
yeah. Yeah, they come that
So
way.
this is our, I can remember.
Bubbles.
Bubbles. This is our bubbles print. And this is such a fun, it's kind of a directional, but not a directional. And this whole line comes in, actually, you know what? I'm going to show you the bundle so you can sort of see what's coming. But there are lights, mediums, and darks in this line. And so this is the first print, which is the bubbles print. And all of these are already on our website. We got them all ready for you.
Just on.
Yes, so that's going to
Okay.
go on the shelf
And here's another bubbles.
in
And
a pink colorway. I love this, so sweet.
what I love is when you see it up close, it has a ton of additional color. And it's interesting because it cuts up, you could use it as a 2-inch piece or a 10-inch piece.
Or a backing.
Or a backing.
It would be beautiful as a backing.
And we did this in 3 colorways, even though I'd like 15 of
Yes,
it.
exactly.
This next one, there we go.
Yeah.
Can you get that?
So this is the, what is it? I can never remember the color names.
Field. Is that the
The
field?
field. Yes, the bubbles in the field, which is great because it's kind of like pinks and greens and blues and yellows. Super fun and summery.
Very summery. Oops, okay. Then we've got, let's flip this one up.
I think this is the
Sweets. This is called Sweets.
And this is like little ovals with checkerboards in them that are so fun. And the background, you can't really see it, but you'll be able to, actually you can see it here.
Here.
The background also has like a teeny tiny checkerboard in it.
See, I've got the super
So,
long.
yes.
I don't know if you look that dark,
dark,
kind of
but it's-
burgundy background.
Yeah.
There are the tiniest checkerboards. So it's checkerboards on checkerboards and
So
ovals.
that's the kind of green that you can see.
And we have it in 3 colorways as well. Wow, these are heavy
They
bolts.
are. So most of the time the bolts are 15 yards. Sometimes they're 13 and sometimes they're 16.
I just got
Which
one of those
is-
20.
Yes,
That was
and,
heavy.
and better. More is better, but it does become challenging when you're trying to do fat-quarter bundles.
So once again, this kind of looks like a blue dominant print, but when you get up close, you have greens, oranges, yellows, pinks, lots
Okay.
of blue greens.
Yes, so these are
that's
all. You
sweet.
can see they're slightly darker than the bubbles. So this whole line has built-in value differences, which will help you use it easily.
And we'll actually show you a sample quilt that makes use of the different values in a moment.
And we'll be sharing projects. We're going to have these 2 weeks between today and then the next installment of the mystery quilt. So we'll, in those 2 weeks, we'll be sharing other projects from Delight, and we'll have kits available. It's some like next week, we hope. But I think it's a really fun, fresh, unlike anything else in your stash, but will work with other things in your stash.
Exactly.
That's kind of our sweet spot.
Oh, here's one.
I love
Plastic
this.
started coming off, so I'll
Okay.
just take that
I
off.
love this one.
So this is called Downtown. And here you go.
These are all hand-drawn, so original prints designed by us and manufactured by Benartex, and they do such a great job with the printing.
And the
Yeah.
quality of the fabric it's just nice
The
to
weight
work
of the
with.
fabric is really fantastic. I want to get that a little bit closer so you can
Actually,
see
I'll hold
how
side by
beautifully
side.
that's printed.
Ooh,
Just lovely.
And so we've got this green that has little bits of yellows and pinks in it.
I love this one.
And
It's
then-
so sweet.
Oh, I love this too.
And the pink.
I'm not even a pink person, and I love this pink
Yeah.
because it just has a lot of small detail in it. And
And it's a lot, it looks a little bit grayer on the screen, but in person, it's a really beautiful soft pink. Kind of
Yeah.
a corally dark pink in there as well.
okay, now you get
Okay,
the box
now
cutter.
I get the next one.
So that's 3 of
And
the
not step on the
6
dog.
prints.
There are, is it 18?
Hi, Ann from Grand Rapids. We love Grand Rapids.
Oh, yeah.
Our daughter will be there in 2 days on her way to camp.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. Oh, so this is one of the fabrics that it's a great background
This
fabric.
is the Weeks talked about value. I'm going to go really close here.
This is the spin.
This is spin, and it's a gentle tone on tone.
It's great for backgrounds, field fabrics. And this is the gray version of that same print.
Okay.
Okay, and then we have like a
Khaki. It's
kind of like celadon.
yeah,
you
it's
know,
called khaki,
pale
but
green.
it's a pale green.
Yeah, let me show you that. Oh, and then these are, I love, we have a hard time.
Oh.
We kind of debate like which is the best print. And
Okay, this is zigzag.
Zigzag, yes, I love
Now,
this print.
this is another one that I'm going to have to hold up close because it is a bunch of overlapping zigzags that are kind of hand-drawn zigzags.
Actually,
but what's
plastic's
neat?
off this one so you can sew them.
Oh, okay.
A little bit more.
All right, let me just get this nicely wrapped.
Barb will answer the question about the t-shirts later.
Yes.
You will be able to order one from a vendor.
So
Yes.
it cuts up beautifully.
Yeah.
And what's neat is the way we layered it. You have kind of periwinkle.
It does look like knitting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does. It looks kind of like a zigzag print. I love this coral one too. This is such a pretty color. I just love it. And the thing is that it's not, you could use it as a directional, but it's so subtle that you won't have to have it in the same orientation throughout the entire quilt or whatever. And this is the fringe. Is this the last one?
Yes, this is the
Yeah.
last one. I gotta take the wrapping off.
This was Jessica, who
this-
works at Benotech. She said this was one of her favorites.
I love, just like the zigzag, it's a lot of overlapping motifs that are hand drawn. So you get a depth and a nice
Yeah.
modeling to it.
Yes, you don't need more fabric.
Oh,
well,
yes.
well, we'll see about that. So this is the, which colorway is this called? I can never remember.
This is the crimson.
Crimson, yes. But what you can see, even just behind us, you can see the value differences. So when we show you the free to use quilt, yeah.
Don't fall.
Yes, don't fall because our dog is down below. Okay, and then this is the last one. Let's take this one off because this is so pretty.
This is the emerald.
Yes, and that's the emerald green. So we will be, so then we also have in stock these, the fat quarter bundles. Fortunately, Benotech's cut these for us, so.
Yes, we often cut.
Otherwise, we'd be in big trouble. But would you please show them Echo, which is, we're going to be promoting on social media the different projects we've made with Delight. But I just couldn't wait to show you the free-to-use pattern, which is on Benotech's site.
Which we will link to from our website. We haven't linked it yet from our website, but there are a few kits available on our site right now.
Yes.
We'll be adding more as the week goes by.
Yeah. But this is our lovely Echo. And it's a, you can see, it's just squares and straight lines, but it's very modern.
And it uses that pale gray spin
Is the background.
as a field. So it's not a stark white. And actually, the quilt's right behind me.
Yes. Oh, right. So you can see it.
So, and there were comments earlier about these fabrics as binding. This
So
is a
fun.
great example of using the sweets as a binding. It's very playful that
Which
way.
you wouldn't think you could use, but it's totally fun.
And then that downtown print as
the backing.
So I'm going to hold up in front of me. Can you see? I can't.
You can see half of it. I do want to show the finished image of the overall, because it's a big quilt.
Yeah, so
this is a
show it
napping
again.
size. So, and this is, again, it's a free pattern on the Benotech site. So feel free to go there.
It's a really simple pattern that's a lot of pages because we had clear diagrams of all of the steps. So if you look at this or if you get the kit, don't be put off by a very long pattern because it's very simple.
It's simple, but basically it's, you know what it is? It's thorough.
That's the word. That's the word.
And it's the same thing as we'll talk about with Summer Camp as well. Bill writes most of our patterns, and we kind of then
and thank
we
goodness
discuss them together.
What I should say is thank goodness she edits.
The pattern is called Echo, and she's asking.
Yes, the echo, as you can guess, is because of the echo.
Yes, can you get a little bit closer?
You have the larger, the top concentric corners are slightly smaller than the bottom, like a slightly faint echo.
Yeah, but what I think is fun about it is you basically make the quilt in two halves, and so what I was saying about you usually do the technical writing and the kind of math calculations, and I think our patterns tend to be longer because he wants to include a lot of diagrams.
Yeah.
So if this is your first quilt, you can make it. So let's see. Oh, we're going to get to
Patty's question.
Yeah, Patty's question in a minute. So, but in terms of the Delight line, there will be more projects coming and more kits coming. But as of now, we have the Fat Quarter bundles on our website
and yardage
of all of the fabrics in stock. And the free to use Echo pattern is on the Benetex's site right now. And there will be more to come. If you are a member of the Modern Quilt Studio Patterns and Fabrics group, make sure that you're also a member of the Modern Quilt Studio main page, because sometimes we post the same thing there, but sometimes we have totally different content there. So be sure to follow us for all of the delight that you'll be getting in the next couple of weeks.
And it's kind of a fun going back and forth for us because we've been working with solids for the summer camp. Some of you are working with prints, which is great. We happen to be working with solids. So it's kind of like this back and forth.
Yeah.
The delight is kind of print maximalism. It's prints and prints and prints.
But the thing is, it's not chaotic because you've got that calm gray background fabric, and I think you've got that clear value difference between
sorry, I lost my train of thought earlier. This is what I want to talk about with the value difference here. If you look at, let me just kind of get this a little more straight. Do you see how the bands alternate the darks and the mediums with a light background?
Yeah.
So, we talk about contrasting fabrics a lot in the Summer Camp Quiltalong. It's similar here. Like, we grouped the fabrics, kind of the light to mediums, and made bands out of those. And then we picked the medium darks and made separate bands. But both of those sets have enough contrast with the light spin fabric print background that you see the structure really clearly, especially the further away you get, the clearer it is. So it's about having a role for those. But
one of the things that is also going to be a thing that comes up with the summer camp is that there are some people I'm seeing that have a beautiful palette of fabrics, and then they've got a background color that's very close in value to one or more of the fabrics that's in their palette, and we would encourage you to edit out those pieces, because in the same way that we couldn't have used like the light blue spin in these bands because it just disappears too much. That value is just one of those things that I think people focus on color a lot, but value is a really important way to be able to see the edge of the pieces that you've worked so hard to put together. So if your palette that you've chosen so far is similar in value and hue to any of the other fabrics in the palette, just set those fabrics aside for a minute and see if it doesn't look a little bit more crisp.
And you can go back and rewatch that preliminary video we did explaining the Quiltalong before it launched, where we showed 3 different palettes, explained how they worked, and then in the first installment video, which came out this morning, we talked even more about this. And I'm smiling, thinking, I hope you don't get tired of us talking about this, but sometimes you hear things, or you're ready to hear things in different ways.
Exactly.
And with repetition, it becomes clear. And a couple of you made very nice comments this morning on the video and appreciated the teaching that goes into it. That's really important to us. We said early on, this is not a class, but we are teachers. We care about design, and we don't just want to say, do this or do that. We want you to have the understanding of how you make decisions so that you can have a quilt that you're happy with.
So both Patty and Karen have this question where that we should just deal with now.
Okay,
so
great. Go for it.
They're asking if when the instructions for the units and the blocks are saying to use a contrasting fabric, they're unclear as to whether they should be using the background fabric or another contrasting fabric within the palette.
Great question. That's a contrasting
I think
fabric.
I've got that right, Patty and Karen. That's what you have in mind? Yes, I think.
Okay, so that would be contrasting within the palette, not the field fabric. So let's say you have a palette of 20 colors that have reds, blues, greens, yellows. Whatever you're using in that block comes from that group.
But even if
you won't be touching that backing or that field fabric, background fabric. You won't use that ever in the block. So I'm glad you asked for clarification.
Unless it says to use the background fabric or the field fabric, you will not be using it for now.
No, you won't be using it till much later.
So when it says
great question,
contrasting fabric, that means within the palette that you have organized. So that means, and we talk about the importance of committing to the palette and then not trying to make a bunch of pretty blocks that look matchy-matchy, but committing early on to integrating all the colors together. So that's what that contrasting means. If you have a blue fabric and either a darker blue fabric, or if you're using a monochromatic fabric or yellow or whatever, but maybe don't use another blue fabric with it.
Yeah, just basically the idea is that when you're making this quilt, when you cut up pieces and sew them together, you want to be able to see them. So
when it does not say contrasting fabric, you can use any of your fabrics. Basically, anytime you're sewing a block together, you want to be using contrasting fabrics. Yeah. So that's the, otherwise you're not going to be able to see it.
Yeah, unless you're making a quote-unquote low-volume quilt where everything is super subtle. That's not what we're after.
Well, you could do that. Actually, you could totally do that. But basically, if you have just across the board for pretty much every quilt you're going to make where you're going to use more than a couple of fabrics, if you've got a larger palette, just start integrating those combinations as early as you can and avoid making a bunch of blue-green fabrics, unless the pattern calls for you to do this, but avoid trying to make a bunch of blocks that are very narrow in their color range. You want to have all of the blocks appear to have equal amounts of color in them and not have some blue blocks and some green blocks and some, unless that's a design intention. But in general, it's kind of like you want to toss the salad pretty thoroughly. Yeah. So. And
I wanted to address, Grace, you had a comment there that the link to the Echo download isn't correct on Benner Texas site. I will get in touch with them. They've had the pattern for a long time, so I think someone just made a mistake.
Yeah.
I will get in touch with them this afternoon. Okay, so
I will make a note of that.
That sometimes takes them a day to get things straightened up after I pass something on, but they've got the pattern. So.
Yes, so it will be there. It will be there very soon. Okay, just confused by the different directions for blocks. Okay,
Oh,
good,
great.
good. All right.
And I'm really glad you're able to ask. And also the Modern Quilt Studio Fabrics and Patterns group is another great place where people help each other understand. And it's not just being a newbie, we do things differently.
Yeah,
And
that's
I think,
true. There are people who are quilting teachers and award-winning quilters who sometimes are thrown actually by some of our patterns because they're like, I've never made a quilt this way. And that's kind of part of the modern quilt movement as far as, you know, it's part of our contribution is that there are lots of different ways to make quilts, and you do whatever way is comfortable for you, and we're doing what's comfortable for us, and we're just inviting you to spend a little bit of time inside our heads for as long as you can handle. But oh, and yes, so I've got a bunch of questions that have already come up
okay.
that I'm going to address, but they're coming up quickly. I can't decide between popsicles and ice cream.
Okay.
Okay, you don't need to decide. So for people who are doing the summer camp Modern Mystery Quiltalong, there are choices that you make along the way between favorite icons of summer, and they help you determine what units or blocks you'll be making.
I totally saw this coming.
Yes, Bill saw this coming. So you go ahead and answer this.
So let's say you're deciding between popsicles and ice cream sandwiches. At the bottom...
Which you should never have to do.
I get it. I would want both. At the bottom of each of the individual pages, there's a little box that tells you how many blocks or units you need to make for that page, depending on which size you're making, since there's a lap, a napping, and a queen. So you can make half of one and half of the other. You will notice, however, that there are going to be times when there's an odd number and it tells you to make 5 of something. Make 3 of it. You might have an extra block or 2 at the end. If you're having a hard time, you can do a bit of both. I can say that your quilt will work. Don't have any stress over this. At the end, everything will be clearer and you'll have some more decisions that give you flexibility. So popsicles and ice cream sandwiches, great, do half and half.
But you know, part of this, you know, it's a really challenging line we walk here where we're trying to have flexibility, and we're also trying to make sure you have a project that you're happy with that goes together easily. So if you decide to, you know, go walk out, take a little walk in the woods and make different numbers of blocks, you may have to do some recalibrating on your own at the end, but it will not be very challenging.
It won't, and it will still be fun.
Yes.
There's nothing that will break the quilt.
Yeah.
and
we've designed this. The whole idea was that we wanted it to be a collection of blocks that you could make and curate on your own. So, because what we heard from you, and we have heard from you for the past 24 years, is that you want to have choices and you want to feel like you're going to be successful, but you get to make decisions and you're not just kind of following somebody else's
right.
you know, rigid instructions. So with that, it's kind of the same thing where we'll get questions about size variations, and the quilt is offered in 3 sizes, and if you would like to make it in a different size, then you will need to figure that out and make that on your own.
Yeah.
But we can't do endless numbers. This is an extremely complicated undertaking. So the sizes that we have are the only sizes we're going to give you, but you can calculate it.
And also, if you, let's say we have the directions for a queen and you want a king, you can either make it larger at the end where you see where everything is gone, or just kind of guesstimate as you go along. There is flexibility in this pattern, but unfortunately, as Week said, you may really want a twin. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Also, like,
Yeah.
it's especially for those of you who have already begun, you can see how much work is going in.
Yeah.
And the idea of choices is not only, as Week said, so that each of you will have a different combination of blocks going into this, but we really hope it evokes some fun memories or visceral reactions, like onion rings all the way, you know.
Okay, so we're getting a ton of questions, and many of them I've got here in my.
Okay.
So we need to just kind of move on here. Pre-washing. We have a YouTube tutorial, and there's a suggestion that we add the previous resources so people can get that answer. I've shared that many times, but maybe at the lodge, could we do the pre-washing and
Sure.
that video to the lodge? And but the answer is pre-wash everything all the time, including pre-cuts. You know,
That's what we do.
That's what we do. The thing that I don't want to do is get into an argument with you about why. You know, if you don't want to, then don't. But the answer that I'm giving you is the answer from having hundreds and hundreds of phone calls and people sharing desperately images of quilts that have been ruined because they didn't pre-wash. People have inherited quilts that weren't pre-washed that were ruined. There's a gazillion reasons. And we've got a 2-part YouTube tutorial that explains how and why we do everything, including if you were using cherry woods, for example, rattan and synthropol. All of that is on our YouTube tutorials because it's such a frequently asked question. However, if you don't want to do that, that's fine. But let's just not argue about it.
Yeah.
That's my only.
But I do want to clarify, we always, 100% of the time, pre-wash. We're making this with the Benartec solids, which have never, ever bled on us. And I still pre-wash them every single time.
Could you
just because
grab that color catcher over there?
Okay, I pre-wash them partly because we're handling them.
Yeah.
And then that way they're clean.
However,
and this is not from
a Benartec line, but this is from I think, were these cherry woods?
That was cherry woods.
These are cherry woods. So this is a color catcher that started out white. Seriously, take that bleeding thing seriously.
And often people will say, well, I only pre-wash the reds, or I only pre-wash the blues.
We've had it with greens, we've had it with blues.
Even if it's a 15-minute quick wash, just wash
exactly. Them. Okay, pressing seams. Again, not something I want to argue about. Do what works for you. We press seams open. You can look through our social media. There's a whole bunch of reasons why we've explained why we do. But you do what works for you. And the whole our goal with quilting is to inspire you, not to argue with you, not to try to convert you, not to tell you that your way is wrong. We're just giving you the benefit of our experience as designers and as teachers. And if it doesn't work for you, just do what does work for you. But we're just trying to explain, when we're asked, where it explained why we press seams open. It's easier for us to match seams. It's less bulky when quilting. There isn't a fiber migration problem if you're using high quality batting. There's a bunch of reasons. However, there are lots of people who just do not feel comfortable doing that, so don't do it. Just do whatever works for you.
Your quote will work.
We're just all about whatever you want to do. So let's get that out of the way. And then there's a whole bunch of questions about solids, specifically the people who are using solids. There is no right or wrong side to solids. there are some manufacturers who use certain finishing agents or certain finishing methods that may appear to have a sheen. If you haven't pre-washed them, that will probably go away after they have been pre-washed. If you're not going to pre-wash, again, this goes down to, if that bothers you, feel free to use one side, like we'll mark sides if we're making long binding strips or something like that. No, because you don't want to sew them. You don't want to sew the fronts to the backs.
Just so we don't have seams on the wrong side.
Yeah.
But with solids, the front and back are the same unless there has been some finishing method applied, because prints start with basically white fabric and the designs are printed on top. Solids start with a white fabric that goes through a dye bath. So it's soaked. It's immersed, which makes it the same on both sides. So it's definitely different from prints, if that helps you visualize it. And as Week said, a couple manufacturers use either high pressure rollers to give it a slight sheen. And that generally goes away with time. I can say that, and we, in many quilts, including this one, mix solids from lots of manufacturers. The weights aren't identical. The weave isn't identical. It's fine.
I think you saw, and if you've seen the first installment video, you can see that we have our starter pack, and then we have 24 years of other solids that we're mixing in with it.
We have no idea where they came from.
We're not worrying about, I think we can say that most of them are not Kona, because that's the one that we avoid unless we absolutely have to use it because we need a specific color for a commission or something. But for the most part, a lot of them are Benotech. Some of them may have been other manufacturers, but they're all pretty similar in weight.
Yeah, and even if you do have some Kona, it's absolutely fine to include it. It's maybe 15 to 20% heavier, but it will still, you can still
it ravels a little bit more,
yeah,
which is why we don't use it, and it's a little more coarse, but so that's why we use the Benotechs. But if you've done your whole palette in Kona, no problem at all. You're probably used to it by now. We don't usually feel the need to starch. Again, this goes into, we're just telling you what we do. We don't need to all do the same thing. Do what works for you. We use steam, and we have a Rowenta, and there's a lot of Rowenta hate out there. I've seen of like, no steam, no water, it leaks, it spins.
Even within that, we're different. Yeah. She presses with the steam on full. I press with the steam completely off and use the bursts of steam.
Right.
Yeah, whatever works for you.
We use Mary Ellen's Best Press sometimes when we're using yarn dyes in particular, because they're woven a little bit more loosely than standard solids or batiks or prints or whatever. And so sometimes having a little bit more rigidity makes them easier to cut and press and everything. But use whatever works for you. As we said, our goal is not to convert you to do things our way. You've got a lot of experience, or even if you're a new person, you're going to have to figure out what works for you, because everybody, every tool is different. Everybody's, water is different in terms of their, access to water. I mean, an Australian person said, I live in a low water availability, area, or I live in California and I'm in a drought situation.
So not going to pre-wash.
I don't want to pre-wash. Right. And it's like, okay, as long as you just understand the risks with that. So the starching thing is totally your call. Ironing is your call. Seams to the side, open, your call. The goal is to explore, and I think that's the perfect theme for summer camp, is that you can try different ways, see what you think, but do what works for you. And we want you to have fun. We don't want you to be like, oh, I pressed the seams open and it was awful. And I don't want that.
And speaking of having fun, we address this in the earlier video, but the way these work with the single sheet of directions in the installment, you will be moving your fabric around a lot. You'll be making a few of a certain block or a few of a different unit. And it does mean that you pick things up, you cut them, you put them back away. And it just helps to have that mindset that it's not production sewing. It's not like sitting down and doing a queen where you know you'll have 500 of the same blocks, so you do all your cutting ahead of time. Part of the reason we like this method is you're looking at the colors of your fabrics, your prints or your solids, whatever you're using. And I think every little block, every unit becomes a fun, separate project. The goal is not to be on autopilot, but to enjoy.
So a couple of questions about working with batiks. I would watch the first, not the first installment video, but the kind of introduction video that's on our YouTube channel to talk about, to understand how to choose fabrics, and then also watch the first installment, because some batiks would work, some would not work as much. The heavily modeled ones where there's a big difference in value within the batik would be more challenging. Yeah. The one that's more even,
a little more even is always better.
Yeah, that's going to be easier.
I was going to address Laura's question about having 22 colors in yardage, and if you do want to cut them into smaller increments to work with, the fat quarters and quarter yard cuts would absolutely be ideal. I think fat quarters give you a little more flexibility, but if you have 20...
It depends on what size you're making too.
Yeah, what size, if you're making, say, the napping quilt, the quarter yard cut could absolutely work for you. What you'll find is maybe when you get 5 installments in, maybe one of your pieces is a little scrappier than others and there might be a piece you can't cut. Well, you've got 19 other fabrics. Yeah. So I don't foresee any problems with quarter yard cuts. If you're doing the napping, if you're doing a queen, I would definitely do half yard cuts of those.
I would just follow the instructions for the yardage for the size you want, and then base that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying with 22, quarter yard will be great for napping. Half yard would work for the queen.
So there are a lot of questions about where, I just want to go through this again, where to find the installments, where to find the patterns. If you've purchased the quilt, if you've registered for the Quiltalong, on your receipt, there is, and that it would be in your email, and if you didn't get an email, it's probably in your spam folder. There is a code that link that gets you to the Lodge. The Lodge is the portal that we will be using for all of our pattern installments as well as video links.
And actually, I want to clarify. Okay. The link on your receipt downloads a PDF, which is a welcome letter. Yeah. That's where the link is to the Lodge. There's it's not a direct link there.
Right, yes.
So make sure when you get the receipt from registering, as most, we see the statistics, we know that almost everyone has it, that you download that welcome letter, print it out. It has general instructions that'll guide you. It has the address to that secret Lodge page, which again, you type into the top bar of your browser, not into Google, not into a search engine, but that top bar, and you'll get there.
So one of the things I think would be overall helpful to explain now, if you haven't done a mystery quilt with us before, is you're not doing all the cutting at once. You're making little units and little blocks at a time, and you're going to be making color decisions just for those individual units at a time. They can, if we don't specify that something has to be all the same color, feel free to mix it up.
Mix it all up.
This is really, our role in this is to give you a structure within which you can be creative and you can make your own decisions. So if we don't say that something has to be all the same color, and also this is what's so great about Bill's gazillion illustrations is that you'll be able to see how, how he's using color. If you're taking a 1 inch strip off of one block and you're putting it on another one, they should be different colors.
But
other
to
than
clarify, I do want to be clear, like Stacy said, should all the blocks, for example, ice cream sandwich, be made in the same colors? No. So the instructions will show you how to make a block or sometimes a pair of blocks or units. But if you need to make 10 of those, all 10 can be completely different.
Yeah.
So you can mix it up. That's a good question. Just mix it up. Just go and use different fabrics each time, because you've already done the color work in assembling that palette. So anything you pick from there will work.
I'm trying to understand Vicky's question here.
Okay.
If we need a 5-inch square as part of a block, is it okay to simply cut a 5 by 18 piece from a fat quarter and then subcut, or do we just only cut the square?
Oh, you could cut the 5 by 18 and then trim that down and just hang on to. You'll be using lots of smaller pieces throughout the quilt along, so if you don't have to fussy cut that square out of it to be maximum efficiency. There is nothing efficient about doing a mystery quilt where you're cutting little pieces. So you can absolutely relax about that, and sometimes you'll have odd little pieces left over and they may work perfectly for a block later.
Karen says the first installment is at the Lodge. It's not on Facebook. So again, the Facebook group, the Modern Quilt Studio Patterns and Fabrics group, is a public page. And there's 6,200 people, 6,500 people on there or something. And only a small percentage of those people are actually doing the Modern Mystery Quilt. But others like to just kind of spectate and just turn in whether it looks like it's fun for them, and then maybe they'll join, next time or whatever. Or they've had shoulder surgery and they can't make the quilt, but they want to participate vicariously. Yes. So that's why we do it on the public page, but no pattern links should be on that page, and no photos of any part of the pattern should be on that page.
Yes.
So everything is at the Lodge. Just if you're looking for anything, it will be at the Lodge.
Yes. So
okay, let's see. I want to make sure I've gotten
Nancy, I think we addressed that one question about the front back earlier.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I've gotten through. There's just so many questions so quickly. Okay, so somebody else also asked in general about fabric organization and how do we organize our fabrics and for pulling palettes and that kind of thing, and is there a reason to organize them through Roy G. Biv? And
no, we mix. What? Oh no! The palette that once we pull the
general fabric storage.
General fabric storage. We do organize in kind of 3 ways. The prints we organize Roy G. Biv. The solids.
Could you clarify what Roy G. Biv is for people who don't know what that is?
So prismatically red, orange, yellow, blue, indigo, violet. So we have drawers for each of those, and then we do separate the solids, which we also have a Roy G. Biv organization of. Then we have a couple extra drawers of large scale prints, which don't have a dominant color, that the scale of the print and the fact that they're so multicolored is what makes them unique. So they wouldn't naturally fit into those color categories. And then I guess the last thing is we tend to have a bin, and I think a lot of you may do this, of special fabrics that either have
Indonesian batiks or something.
Indonesian batiks or Liberty of London's that are unique in one way or another.
So, but in general, we find it helpful to organize all of our fabrics, regardless of genre, in Roy G. Biv, because it's easier to see what you have when you keep all of your bundles all tied up by line, and you've got like your Tula Pink here and your Civil War reproduction fabrics. You don't necessarily you aren't able to see that those could be used together in some circumstances. So we find it easier to just pull apart everything unless it's got a specific plan. We sort of make mini kits for ourselves sometimes.
We actually often do that,
Yeah.
where sometimes it's even cutting an order for a customer who's gotten 8 fabrics. I'm like, those are beautiful together. Let's take a note of that. But sometimes we just take a little break and put fabrics together to get inspiration. And if there's a really successful palette, we may put that in a big Ziploc bag or something for future reference.
It's clear that the hardcore drinkers have already started. They're already off in another cabin already. Okay, and Valerie's asked a couple times, so she really wants to answer this question. In choosing a background fabric, is it supposed to recede or stand out? Your choice. It's totally your call, but and what you choose will we encourage you to audition background fabrics. So you'll be able to make that call, but there isn't a rule in terms. That's a design choice you make.
And I also like to say that you may have a couple different ideas, but may not make that final decision until later on when you see the layout of the quilt. Because right now, we want you to be aware that you will need something that contrasts. That may recede, it may come forward. But, someone had a great posting this morning of kind of a putty or a navy, both of which were absolutely beautiful with her palette. And either one could work really well. And my feeling is, hold off. Either one would work. Make the decision when you know more and you've seen where this is going.
Right.
So
you don't need to commit to the background fabric right now.
You don't.
However, the one thing I would suggest is that you have kind of a rough draft.
Yes.
Because you don't want to have so many colors and so many values in there that you don't have any choices.
That's
for
exactly
a background
it.
print. So you want to kind of, I think if you have like the navy and the putty, if you have that navy, then you're going to need to pull the dark fabrics from your palette. And if you're going to go in the putty direction, you might want to pull some of the lighter fabrics.
Or in the case of the one that was posted today, the palette fell in the middle, so either one would work. But what I like you to think of is, let's say that you have just a fat quarter of a putty in your stash, and you look at it and you're like, that looks like it could work. You don't have to run out and buy yardage of it now for the field. You could just kind of put it off the side and say, I know, there's lots of fabric out there. Yeah. You will be able to find something similar, not necessarily the same. But as Week said, you want a plan, you want a rough draft that you could imagine that you have a couple choices, even if you don't have to finalize it. I think we refer
to it as the blank space. You need
the blank
space in your palette. Jackie wanted to know if you can use fabrics for the piecing. Let's just call it the palette. You can use prints for the palette and then a solid for the background. Yes. The thing that becomes a little bit trickier is if you're trying to use prints and solids in the same roll in the quilt, and that sometimes is to me, I've never seen anybody make that work.
I've seen, but I don't think it's a good idea in the mystery quilt because you don't know exactly how things are used. So when you're assembling that palette of 16 plus fabrics, I would stick with either solids or prints, knowing that that background fabric could be either one later. That's not a problem.
So if you're looking at mixing grunge with plain solids, I think it's tricky.
It's not a solid.
It's not a solid, and then the solids are going to look very flat, and they're going to stand out. But if you like that, this is the thing: is that I don't, I'm not trying to be evasive, but I'm also trying to not be kind of quilt policey, because then it just sets up this oppositional situation. And that's not what we want to have with you. We want to have with you, we're giving you our advice, and you can say, no, I really like that combination. go for it.
But we
Go
want you to
for it.
understand why
Absolutely.
we're thinking this. Because
Yeah.
like I love grunge. I love working with it. But it has a lot of depth to it. There are a lot of colors. There's a lot of, it's all about texture. So it looks beautiful with solids. However, it
In a different role, though.
in a different role.
Yeah.
So if you had 20 grunges for the blocks and then a solid for the background fabric, that could be stunning. Or you can mix grunge with a lot of tone on tones very well as well. So,
and again, for those of you who may have come in late, the background fabric, if is not, we're not mixing the background fabric with your main palette.
it's not going to be in any of the blocks or units you're sewing.
Yeah, so the background fabric is totally separate.
So I actually just saw the time and I realized we haven't talked about the t-shirts.
Well, I know,
Okay.
that was the last thing on the list. See, I have the list. That's on the list. Okay, so for those, because this is just, we haven't complicated our situation enough with all of this. I said to Bill, I'm like, I think we should have a t-shirt, because he designed this fantastic logo for us. And you found a vendor who allows you to, if you want to order a t-shirt using our logo and a choice of colors and sizes and everything. So this is not,
We're not making
we're
these.
not making
We're
these,
not
we're not
shipping them.
We're not in charge. We're just basically providing our logo to a t-shirt manufacturer who will then ship them to you, and they will take your money and all that.
And so that transaction, I haven't put it up yet, but I will put it on the Lodge later this week. A link if you're interested. The only thing we have is they're kind of unisex t-shirts and women's t-shirts. And just for the heck of it, I had to put the coffee mug as an option. And the
That's for the drinkers. That's for the people who are already over having happy hour.
And this, the vendors allow you to pick different items, and we did everything we could to keep the prices just like the Quiltalong.
Yeah, keep the prices down.
It's set up for people to sell things and make a big profit, which is what
but we're not doing that.
We're just trying to keep, like, basically get you the t-shirts.
If you want a t-shirt,
if you want them.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
As always, these aren't ours.
Yes to the mugs. Everybody's to the mugs.
I mean, it's all fun. And so I always say with t-shirts, especially when you're ordering from vendors, they have size charts. I always say order up, because...
But they have, what's nice about this place is that it has a measurement across the t-shirt. So take a t-shirt you have that fits, measure it at the largest part of what you need, and then look at their size chart, because it's by inches, and that's the best way. And I think the women's, most of them are 100% cotton. Some of them are cotton poly. If they're heathered,
it says the color.
Yeah.
So anyway, the details are there, and I actually talked to them about sizing, because I'm worried when we don't have control of something.
Yeah, we don't want to feel
And they said that
all
the sizes should be plus or minus 1 inch from what's listed, and if not, they will, take care of you and help
replace them.
So anyway, that link I'll get up on the Lodge. We've just been a little busy, but we had to wear them. They just came in.
Okay, so people definitely. So counselors are allowed to come to happy hour. Well, that's a good thing, but I'm sorry we can't, because we have fabric to cut. We have just like a ton of fabric to cut. But we will be having also some campfire chats, and we'll talk about that more.
Those will be revealed later. Yes,
and we will be, there's a couple of requests that we have for you. If you are part of the Quiltalong and you're in the Modern Quilt Studio Patterns and Fabrics page, please report any bots or creepy people or inappropriate people or people trying to lure you into multi-level marketing schemes like Temu or whatever. Please report those people. I go on there at least twice a day trying to just, ban them. But for whatever reason, there's people who do that. So please report them. You guys have been so great in being kind and supportive and encouraging to each other. And we're going to be pretty vigilant about making sure that is the tone. And if anybody says anything or whatever that makes you feel uncomfortable, there's a report post or whatever, and just tell me and I'll take a look at it. But we do want to make sure, car warranties. We do want to make sure that it's a safe space and a fun space, and that this Quiltalong
in a colorful space. Yeah.
So keep posting your palettes. We comment as frequently as we can. Again, don't take it personally if we don't see yours, but in a group this size, it is sometimes even just keeping up with the chat. Well, it's kind of like a marathon. So
we haven't even sent out a newsletter saying this is going on.
I know we haven't even started marketing this yet. Really,
well, it just we suddenly have hundreds and hundreds of people, and so
yes.
Anyway,
they V-neck T-shirts. I don't think we did any V-neck.
I think they're crew neck. I can
look. I think they're. See, mine is a little bit. This is the women's, and it's a little bit.
But
doesn't have the ribbed. Yeah. But anyway, in person, we've done that. We've done that.
The question is, how about an in-person real summer camp?
Yeah. With 1,000 people.
Find the space.
Yes. Yeah.
We can rent a small city somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And right now, how many people are attending? Right now, I looked before we started, and there were 660 at this point.
Which is
we haven't started marketing it yet. Right?
And I think we have to hire more counselors.
Yeah. So I think. And Karen, did you look in your? She sent a receipt asking. She didn't get her receipt. Please look in your spam folder.
Yes. Always check your spam folder.
Yeah.
If there's any problem, you just don't see it, you can email me.
You may have multiple spam folders.
sales@modernquiltstudio.com is where it comes from.
And that was going to be the other thing I was going to ask. Any issues related to payments, fabric orders, anything kind of transactional stuff? If you could just email us at sales@modernquiltstudio and not... We can't answer any questions. You don't want us to discuss your credit card information or your address or whatever on Facebook. So all kind of money related stuff, please use sales@modernquiltstudio for that. So we can just keep the whole spirit of the Facebook page or any of our social media posts just on making and fun and
Karen,
inspiration.
Just sales@modernquiltstudio.com. Shoot me an email and we'll check.
So, okay. Have we given you enough information for today?
and today was the only day that camp started at 8 a.m.
That's right.
I love that some of you were up early.
It's sweet.
And yes.
Yeah. It will be
at noon.
For the remaining installments.
So campers can sleep in a bit.
So we will see you soon, and we'll see you multiple times a day in the Modern Quilt Studio Patterns and Fabrics group. And I know you're going to have fun and make new friends, because this is a great little community we've built here.
It
and
really
I think
is.
you're going to have fun with everybody.
So
see you soon.
Have
Stay
a
out of
great
the poison ivy.
Take care. Bye-bye.